Lloyd Vance's Insider Football is back for another week here on 1029 The Game and the Coast Sports Network. So glad everybody can join me and my tag team partner, Kevin Midgette, as we spin you around the National Football League. I mean, so much exciting news and notes to talk about. Finally, teams are getting to training camp. The Philadelphia Eagles, the world champion Philadelphia Eagles, they are reporting to camp tomorrow, Tuesday, at the NovaCare Complex. So they will be getting in, and by the end of this week, everybody will be in, Kevin, and finally we can get closer to talking about, well, preseason games. The real games aren't until September 4th to the hated Dallas Cowboys play the Eagles. But, are you getting excited for all this?
I'm getting that kind of like when you're a kid and you first see someone like one house puts their Christmas lights up early, or you hear like some stray Christmas song, and like December 1st, November 30th. It's like it's coming. Oh, it's coming. You just keep biding your time, trying to distract you until you're not thinking about it, but it's on its way.
Yeah, and I started hearing some of my friends, and they're like, "Oh, the Hall of Fame game, man, Hall of Fame game," and it's July 31st. It's the LA Chargers against Detroit Lions in Canton, Ohio. We talked last week about the four guys going into the Hall of Fame around that. Kevin, you're not crazy enough to bet on this game. The Lions are 1.5 point favorite, and the over under is 32.5 points. Are you that much degenerate, my man?
I'll tell you what, I bet on a lot of stuff. I bet on a squirrel fighting a chicken if you gave me a line on it, but I am not betting on the Hall of Fame game. That is where I draw the line, and I will call that number that's on the bottom of the bet.
Yeah, it's funny, Kevin, because every year it seems there's a lightning storm and they don't even finish the game. you know, I'd say take under on that. But that's for all my friends out there that like to put a few coins out there. I just think it's a little crazy in preseason, especially when you're talking about a 90-man roster, and you're going to be talking about four stringers playing each other probably around the second quarter or so in that game. But it's fun. Everybody's back into training camp, and the teams are getting ready for the season. Another exciting season around the NFL's coming. In particular, wanted to get take and Angel's take, our producer, on the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions, and I know I picked against them. Everybody reminds me all the time. Super Bowl champions, they got their rings on 7/18, Kevin. And I saw these rings, and I want to get you guys' take on this. They look a little loud and gaudy to me. If I was a player, I'd be afraid to kind of. I don't know if I'd walk on with it. There's always that story, and Kevin probably noticed there was a Philadelphia Phillies staffer that lost their ring washing their hands in a washroom at a Citizens Bank. Should they wear these rings? I mean, Angel, can you bring it up just so we show our audience these rings, and we'll get the opinion here. Kevin, what do you think? Too flashy?
I was saying earlier, they're bougie, there's no doubt. You're not wearing it to Costco, that's for sure, pushing the big cart around. Each ring should come with its own security detail. You're not you're not walking around too safely wearing that ring. And let's be honest, you're not blending in with anyone. These guys who want to live in anonymity and like just be able to do their everyday life type things, somebody sees that ring, it's like, that's somebody. Let's go get a picture with them. Let's go talk to them. That says please notice me. So yeah, I mean, we were talking about earlier. That has to go in a trophy case somewhere. That has to be under lock and key, no doubt.
Yeah, it's put in a safe deposit box, and there were a couple guys I was involved with the Third and a Mile book. They actually let me wear their rings. They didn't. They said, "Here, you want to put it on?" Yeah, and I walked around. We were at some NFL activities with it, and I was like, "This thing's heavy." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I wouldn't walk around. It was actually a Ravens ring, and it had all like sapphires and diamonds on it. It was like incredible. And I was like, man, now you see why some of these guys pawn it later on in life, because they're showpiece. What do you think,
Yeah.
Angel? Do you think it's too much or just right?
I think personally, as much as I rode the Eagles last year and said that they weren't going to win the Super Bowl no matter what, they at least, I will say this much. I like it. Is it a little bit gaudy? Yes. but I do like it. But I already called Big Dom. I already gave him the laydown and the lowdown of everything that's going on. I said, as soon as I come back to Philly to collect my ring, I want to make sure you're there. Guard me at Lincoln Financial Field. So Big Dom said, no problem. But no, listen, you can't. I don't care who you are. You just can't do it, Lloyd and Kevin. You guys gotta keep that at home in a case. Just look at it. I don't care if it's spinning somewhere. Just stare at it. But there's no way in the world. I don't care if it's Philly, Atlanta, Antarctica, no matter where you are. You're not wearing that because someone's going to get a pair of, vice grips or something else. They're going to take your finger and your ring with you. So no, I think I'm good. Leave it at home.
Yeah, and it's almost like a contest. As each team wins, they said, "Oh well, I got to put more diamonds on this thing and bling bling than the last team." So kudos to Jeffrey Lurie, Don Smolinski, the president. They did a nice job putting this together. The reason it must have taken so long is, man, they had to go all around the world for all those jewels. But
Oh, yeah.
I always think it's interesting, like all the staff members get it. I would like, I guess even an intern picking or something. And if you didn't really play and you were an intern, should you think about maybe pawning that thing and paying off some student debt?
You could, because you got to figure out how many players have
No,
won.
no, you keep that. You keep that.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was gonna say you keep that till the first kid rolls around or something like that, or like your water heater breaks. So you say that for adult problems. Young you know what you do? You do actually do something stupid and wear it out in public. You try to meet chicks or something like that, and
There
that's
it
where
is.
bad things happen. Would I do it? Hell yeah, I would have done it back in my day. So
Backup long snapper,
I will not
Kevin
begrudge one of these
Midgette.
guys doing something stupid with it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
totally. And my one buddy, he was on the Penguins for a lot of years, and he has 3 Stanley Cup rings. And I always would say to him, we were young. I was like, let's take these things out and have some fun with them. And he's like, nah, something's going to happen. You know what I mean? And I kind of agree with you that nice to be admired, put it on display, but you always wonder, somebody's going to get got. You know what I mean? So enjoy it, Eagles. But the thing is, and I wanted to get Kevin's take on this. Now's the time to turn the page and forget about last season. Now they're the Eagles won. Everybody's had their fun. They were on a Tonight Show and everything else, and we saw Kelsey and Cooper DeJean and all the guys having their fun down Sea Isle. Is it time to get ready as they get ready for training camp?
You would think so in a perfect world. It's like, all right, this is over. Close the chapter on this. Let's move forward. Is there a thing called the Super Bowl hangover or some sort of championship hangover? Absolutely. It's the last time they were on the field, they were so tuned in, more so than they probably have been their entire lives. So to be able to come back and find that level of concentration is going to be difficult. The question is, though, can they get it before the season starts? And that's when it all goes down.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's going to be a situation where, it's going to be on Sirianni. We all question, all right, leader of men, he's got to get these guys ready. And he's got, especially because they had a lot of, so you talk about Milton Williams leaving, you talk about Sweat leaving, Brandon Graham retiring, particularly off that defense that was just so dominant all last season and in the Super Bowl. They sacked Mahomes 6 times and just harassed him over and over again. So, yeah, I would kind of agree that they kind of need to turn the page. It's exciting. They got their rings. It has 2 Super Bowl trophies on it. The Eagles got it done, 2017 and last season. They can – that was always the thing. NFC East, all the other teams say, oh, we got trophies in our case. Well, now the Eagles have multiple trophies. Do you think they can realistically repeat? Do you think – I know it's very early, but at these early stages, do you think they can?
I mean, mathematically on paper, sure, they have just as much talent as anybody else in that conference to get to the game. That's for sure. Realistically, will it happen? Probably not. Probably not. Then again, I think all of us on this dais here have picked against them last year. So what the hell do we know? So I mean, they're in it. They got the players. It's the same desire. Once again, you got to think about this too. For any NFL team, you have a lot of luck going your way to have all those guys healthy by the time the playoffs start. And it's like the question is, will they have those guys healthy once again?
Yeah, health is key. They particularly the quarterback Hurts. Think about all those tush pushes he did, and he came out unscathed. And Saquon Barkley, season for the ages, over 2,000 yards rushing, almost broke Hector Dickinson's record. And it was a big question mark coming from when he was a Giant because he was always banged up with the Giants. Other than his rookie season, he had not played a 15 games in a season. So, great year for the Eagles. Roster still very strong. Howie Roseman did a nice job in the draft and bringing in some other pieces. We'll see how some of these guys on one-year deals work out. But, yeah, the Eagles, I still think that they can win their division. So we're here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football.
Yeah, I think so. And move, go forward though, just until we get Lloyd straightened out here, is one of the things that the Eagles are going to have to work also is Washington with Jaden Daniels in another season right there. Dallas, as much as we like to beat up on the Dallas Cowboys, I know I'm a fan. The thing is though, they are eventually due to make a run, and they haven't done that in a few years. So with Dak healthy, you had Pickens, you had CeeDee Lamb going. Running back wise, they're trying to get Javonte Williams now to be their lead back. They drafted Blue out of Texas. I mean, Dallas is due to make a run, and the Giants, as much as we make fun of them, also you got Russell Wilson, who we all can pretty much cook at this point. But that defense is going to be a little more difficult than we're used to them being. So the NFC East isn't exactly going to be the layup I think a lot of Eagles fans think it is.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think they'll win the division, but it may be tighter. Last year, a lot of those games were laughers. Dallas, on paper, they still have a lot of playmakers, and we'll see how they replace Zach Martin, who retired, and Williams coming over to run position. They got to get something out of him. Defense, especially in the backfield, their backfield's got to get healthy. So, but Dallas is going to be there. And then Washington, we talked about them early and often. They beat the Eagles once in a regular season. Obviously, the Eagles had their number in the championship game, but bringing Larry Tunsil over and some other pieces on the offensive line, they'll be ready to battle the Eagles as well. Want to see what they do with Terry McLaurin, that situation there. We'll get to a couple of holdouts in a minute. In terms of training camp, Kevin, Hard Knocks. This year it's the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills will report to St. John Fisher University on July 23rd, which is this Wednesday. The show will premiere August 5th. Hard Knocks, you're watching it, not watching it? I mean, what are you thinking?
I think it's good for people who just got past the Hall of Fame game and get ready for the first week of preseason, and it's like you want to watch actually real players what they're going through. It's for that football jonesing itch. I mean, I know super fan Nate Vance can't wait for it to open up, to watch the Buffalo Bills and all the behind the scenes, glory there. So, I mean, well, I think it also does matter who the team is. It's like if you have like that Giants one was a joke, but the funniest part was the Saquon Barkley stuff. So I think people that were NFC East fans enjoyed it a lot more than anybody else. But with the Bills being there, it could be a watch, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good watch. I do like the behind the scenes stuff and they always do kind of formulaic story. It's like the fourth string receiver, a guy who's probably going to, if he makes the team, he'll be a practice squad guy, and then they show them with their families and all that. And then they'll show cut down day, the worst day of some of those young men's lives. So, but I'll tune in for the show. I make it on replay, and, I'm not going to, oh man, got to be right there Wednesday night when it first comes on or whatever. But yeah, August 5th will premiere, and I'm looking forward to that. Before we get to the AFC North preview here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, a couple more news and notes. TJ Watt got his contract. He's 30 years old. It's a 3-year, $123 million extension, 108 of it guaranteed. He's now the highest paid non-quarterback in the National Football League. Deserved, not deserved, or are they opening up Pandora's box here?
I think it's deserved. I think T.J. Watt. Nobody can argue what he's done on the field. The guy's probably a Hall of Famer. Him and his brother are both going to have the jackets. So I mean, on that, it's like, all right, are you paying for past performance or future performance? What he can get for you? And T.J. Watt, what is he, 30, I believe, something like that. He's like
Yes,
exactly 30, and it's like he has some years left in that guy. If he takes care of himself, he doesn't have these, and they have had to. The whole thing is, if you're Pittsburgh, you don't lock up T.J. Watt. What the hell are you doing over there? Because you sat there, you brought in Aaron Rodgers, you dealt Pickens, you brought in DK Metcalf. You're all over the map. So it's like, are you going for it? You're not going for it. So I think as a franchise, they had to make that move.
yeah, it's crazy. Defense is always their calling card. The defense kind of struggled last year, and then they trade Minka Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey. Talk about Johnny Smith coming on offensively, but they're building their team around a defense. They have Warren, and then they drafted Caleb Jones coming over from Iowa. Are the Steelers going to be real contenders? I know we're going to give the whole division preview in a minute, but is this too much defense?
Not when you had Big Play Slay over there. So you got him over there as well,
Yeah.
Darius Slay. Yeah, and it just seems like they are really just trying to. They've got some names on paper. Do they have these names when they were younger in their prime? No. So it's almost like they're just trying to patchwork this 1 year run with Rodgers at the helm and some older defensive guys to see if they can do something. And then I think the biggest problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll get into it later, they had no game plan, it seemed like, when they went into free agency in the offseason. It's like you brought in Metcalf and you had Pickens, and then you had no quarterback to throw these guys the ball. And you got stuck to a point and painted in a corner where you had to bring in Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback for the whole season.
Yeah, and that it was almost Mason Rudolph or Will Howard, a young guy from near me. He's in Downingtown, and he's not ready to come in. He's a national championship quarterback, but he's not ready to step in the NFL. So they kind of wait on Aaron Rodgers, and we'll see if it works out. I tend to think it's not going to. Speaking of quarterbacks here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football 1 and the Game Coast Sports Network, glad you're with us this evening. Quarterback battles. We'll go over a couple of these. Indianapolis, it came out this week. They're saying, Anthony Richardson's shoulder's not as hurt as much as they thought. He's going to be ready to start camp right away. Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones?
I think you started with Anthony Richardson. I mean, you drafted the kid number one for a reason, by either injury or just poor performance by week, let's call it 6. Yes, I do. I think if Anthony Richardson gets out to say a 1-4, 1-5 start, I think it's Daniel Jones time, and that's not even that great for him either.
Yeah, it's and with Irsay's daughter's taking over the team, they have no loyalty to Anthony Richardson. Everybody's saying, is this a bust? Something like a bad. The guy's completing 47% of his passes. I mean, you can't win in the National Football League like that. And yes, they have Jonathan Taylor. Yes, they have Pittman, who's a little banged up. I like Pierce a lot. He makes a lot of big catches here and there. They're bringing over Tyler Warren, the tight end. So they do have some weapons there. And Quentin Nelson on the offensive line and some other guys. But he's just got to be more consistent. And the thing is, Kevin, if he was just a little bit better, they could probably win that. The Texans won that division with 10 wins last year. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch. The other one we've talked about a lot this off season, the Cleveland Browns. Number one, what are they doing? They have 5 quarterbacks, okay? It's including Deshaun Watson, who's got the Achilles. We all know he's probably not going to be ready till December at the earliest, something like that. But I'm hearing Kenny Pickett is getting already of the first team snaps, and they're going to give him his chance to start. So it's Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel's a 3rd rounder, and then everybody, of course, wants to know about Deion's son, Shedeur Sanders, the 5th rounder. What are they going to do with him?
I think you start with Kenny Two Gloves. I think it's almost like a situation where when the Eagles, once again, Donovan McNabb, you brought in Dougie Peterson there to, let McNabb sit and watch for a little bit. And once again, Kenny Two Gloves there. But the thing is, they don't know what quarterback they want to follow him either with all these rookies. And even when they bring one in, neither one of them are going to be ready for it. So Pickett's only going to be there for so long, get beat up on. Then it's all the fans and the media is going to be clamoring, first of all, for Shedeur Sanders first. It doesn't even matter if he's the better quarterback in the mix. People want to see him first. So, I mean, they just have a powder keg they're sitting on right now, and we're all just going to eat some pop watch.
Yeah, it is. It's like you were saying last year with the Giants in their mess. They knew they had a mess going into the season. The Bears knew they had a mess going into the season. They both were on diversions of hard knocks last season, and it's like, all right, let's see how this is going to play out. And it played out pretty much the way we thought it was. The Browns, I think Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, is in trouble. You know what I mean? But the thing is, does Jimmy Haslam, the owner there, does he have any plan, rhyme, or reason? Because the roster is just a mess. And then you have this whole Deshaun Watson and it's guaranteed money. He's getting $46 million this season guaranteed and next season under contract. Maybe they finally jettison him, but just a cloud over the Browns. And the Browns are a good segue into the Tennessee Titans came out. They said Will Levis has a shoulder injury. He's not going to play this season. So the Titans, I'm thinking, may need a quarterback. They do have Cam Ward overall. He's going to probably be the starter. Brandon Allen is their backup. So should they talk to Cleveland about maybe a Joe Flacco?
Oof. How old's Flacco now? Didn't I go to high school with that guy? I mean, he's pretty old, man.
He's 40, man.
Yeah, jeez.
Man, he's 40.
He feels like he's 50, man. They need to bring somebody in because Cam Ward, the one thing you don't want to risk is putting him in a situation where he becomes like Tim Couch or was it Carr from the Texans? It's like somebody who's thrown in there way too early, and you basically crush this kid before he even gets his feet under him. They've invested too much as far as a draft pick goes in Cam Ward to let him just be the starter from week one. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but what do I know?
Yeah, he probably should, take their time putting him in there. Don't put him in right away. Yes, Bo Nix, it worked out for the Denver Broncos. He came in, he was ready to go. We saw that in the past with Joe Flacco in 2008 with the Ravens, and they made the play actually with Mike White as the head coach. And also that same season, Matt Ryan hit the ground running. But too often these rookie quarterbacks are not ready to go. And I think, maybe bring a veteran in because if Brandon Allen has to play, that season lost. And Brian Callahan, their head coach, he's on a hot seat. So another situation where, could get ugly quick. So we'll see about that. This one, I don't even think it's really a quarterback, but the New York Giants, we were kind of talking about them a little bit with the Eagles. Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, who they got in the first round. And then I think Jameis Winston, who's there, could be a trading piece around cut day, which is August 27th. So what do you think is going to happen to the Giants situation?
I think Jameis Winston's going to be the odd man out on that one. If you get to a point where Russell Wilson is healthy, it's Jameis Winston. The one thing you got to say about the guy, got that Favre mentality. He puts it out there. He could throw 3 picks and 3 touchdowns in the same game. It's just like he throws it out there, and there's always like just a mistake here or there. Like he's that close to being that good. It's like he's that close, but there's always Jameis just turns into the gunslinger that he is sometimes. But if you're asking me, if I'm the Titans, would I rather have Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston at the trade deadline? Give me Jameis Winston because Russell Wilson, just on my end, just my opinion entirely, he has the diva, and the mentality of I don't want to deal with him. Jameis is a baller. He just wants to go out there and play.
Yeah, I agree. And it's another team, Jameis's old team, the Saints. Now this one's Tyler Shook, who he comes from Louisville, 26. He's older than some of his quarterbacks are starting already. He's slated, and then Spencer Rattler and Jake Hayner. Should they think about getting Jameis back?
No, not at all. See, that's the opposite in this thing. If you're the New Orleans Saints, you want to stink. You want to be the worst possible team in football. That's how much help you need. Jameis Winston coming over and helping you win another game or two is going to screw you up entirely. At least the Titans went out there and got their number 1 quarterback already. The Saints, I don't know what they were doing on draft day. But once again, the looming presence of Arch Manning maybe That's enough to make me say, let me lose every game if I'm New Orleans.
Yeah, Arch Manning sweepstakes. They're going to be talking about that now until you know the draft, and it's looking like he's going to start for Texas. And the heir apparent. Poor Archie got butt kicked for the Saints. Maybe he can do better, but hometown people in Louisiana, New Orleans, and they all played their school ball there, including his father, Cooper. So yeah, Arch Manning may be a good fit for the Saints. So there's some of the quarterback battles that we're talking about around the National Football League here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coast Sports Network. Thanks for joining us. New head coaches. And some of these guys, and I'll just ask you, struggle or not? Like maybe they have that impact like Harbaugh had in 08, where they turned the team around. Chicago, Ben Johnson. Now he's coming in there. Caleb Williams had all the number one hype, and he's got Roma Dunzier, Moore, and he's got some pieces there. Is Johnson going to turn around this team?
I'll say yes. I'll say yes because the Bears have been so bad for so long now, and he's going to breathe some fresh blood into that offense, that scheme, and like you said, he's pieces there. He's got some weapons that he can utilize as long as Caleb Williams listens and follows what his instruction is.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're one of the teams I think could be a surprise. Them and the Patriots I picked as maybe teams that could jump into that 6th, 7th wild card spot. And he's going to bring a disciplined style. We knew Eberflus was a mess in that staff and everything. And the defense is actually not that bad with Johnson. They have the others coming over from Washington. He's a pretty good pass rusher, so they do some pieces defensively. And it's going to be on Caleb Williams. And his numbers weren't that bad, but he cannot take all those sacks. I know some of them are on the O-line, but he can't hold on to the ball too long and try to make something out of nothing like he did so often at USC. You just can't do that in the National Football League. So I think Johnson does have a shot. New England, Mike Vrabel's in the door. No, nowhere to go but up with Jerome Mayo. Jerome Mayo. That was very odd when Kraft named him right away to coach in waiting, and then they fire him after one season. So New England, could they be a team to jump in the mix with their new head coach?
I think it's an upgrade with Vrabel, there's no doubt. But do I think they're there? Just for the fact I don't think they're there because Drake May, who showed some promise last year, that number one wide receiver is still elusive to them. We talked about Stephon Diggs before. Where's his head at? Where is he, at mentally, including physically, to be that number one for them? I don't know if he's there or not. If they don't have a number one wide receiver and they have their usual collection of running backs, not really a standout, but, some just above average guys, I think they're like in the 7-win tier. I don't think they're really, a playoff team, that's for sure.
I kind of agree with that. 9, maybe they're ceiling. The Dallas Cowboys, and this guy, he was the last round draft picks of all the coaches hired. The typical Jerry Jones hire, like Brian Schottenheimer, seriously? Marty's son? But I think he wants a coach that he can kind of work with, i.e. control the narrative because he's the general manager as well as the owner. So Brian Schottenheimer make a difference. I know you were saying Dallas may be a little bit more competitive this season. Dak coming back from that hamstring injury.
Just for the fact Jerry's there, no, they're not going to win a Super Bowl, that's for sure. But the one thing I will say, and it's like you almost foresee some things. Dallas Cowboys upset the Philadelphia Eagles, first game of the season, and then you're going to have all the Cowboy fans come out of the woodwork. Oh, we're back. And then they'll fumble like around October to November, and Dak got a Dak, But watch it. Dallas win the first game, and you're just going to have, especially national media, will go crazy if the Cowboys win.
And you talk about talk radio here in Philadelphia will go nuts too. They lose to the hated Cowboys when they're raising that banner. That'll be nuts. So something to watch that game. I saw the Eagles are a 7-point favorite already, early line on the game. So, but they cannot be complacent. We talk about those big gaudy rings, and then they're going to put up the banner, and everybody's going to be hyped. But there's going to be a game to be played. And you're right, the Cowboys, show up to Eagles. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times they feel like it's not really rivalry to them, but they want to show them up on their big night. So yeah, dangerous situation for the Eagles. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Jets. All right, he's going for the Lions. He's going to the Jets. Robert Salah out the door. They just gave out some nice extensions. Wilson, Sauce Gardner. So they're trying to lock up some of their young talent. Is Aaron Glenn going to make immediate, impact on his team?
I just don't. The Jets have a couple of nice pieces here and there. The quarterback play is going to get them in the end. I think that's what it is. I think there's going to be a game or two where it's like, oh, it seems like they put it together and then they're just going to fall off the next week. I just see a lot of up and down from them. And I also, once again, have them around the 7-win category right there. I don't see them anything major. I don't see them as a playoff threat.
Yeah, and you have Brees Hall and some good young pieces there, but it's like they have the longest drought in the NFL. They're the Jets in terms of making the playoffs, and he's got an uphill climb. The thing is, Woody Johnson's he's not calm in terms of he's not have a lot of patience. So we'll see how it goes. And they're coming off that whole Aaron Rodgers mess and all that. And there's still some cronies like Lazard on the team from Rodgers. So we'll see. But yeah, Aaron Glenn, I think he's going to have a tough season. Kellen Moore, I think you alluded to this earlier. He's in with the Saints. He's going from the penthouse to the outhouse. So how's he going to do with the Saints? I mean, I think they could be like a 3-win team.
I think first thing he's going to do is wear that Super Bowl ring into the first meeting. That's the one day he's going to wear it. Try to show him, what's at the end of the tunnel for them. I like we said, it's like Kellen Moore. It's almost like when he has a special playbook for plays that really work, and they're going to tell him to put it away till next year. Ownership's going to come in and say, nah, just put that away. We'll bring that out in 2026. This one right here, here's a playbook from last year, Kellen. Run. Just run it verbatim.
Yeah, maybe they put Tate on a single wing at quarterback and they just try to play some games that way. Why not? Because you're right. It would behoove them to kind of be bad, tear that thing down, get rid of a lot. They already got rid of Dennis Allen. Mickey Loomis, he's been a GM there forever. Maybe change that. The Benson family. They got a lot to look at because the Saints, there's nowhere to go but up. And then you had Derek Carr's surprise retirement and, I don't think they were ready to that. So it's going to – another team I think is going to be very downtrodden. Now, this was an interesting one, Kevin. The Las Vegas Raiders bring in Pete Carroll. Now, what is he, like 80 years young? I mean, he had success with the USC. He had success with the Seattle Seahawks for a number of years. They bring him out of retirement. They needed some discipline there after Antonio Pierce. Is he going to bring that?
No. This is what happened at USC, man. Those kids are running amok with everything with the boosters and all that. That's not a guy who's going to, the guy of discipline right there. And especially the older he gets. You know what the older guys do when they're like grandpas and everything? Let the grandkids hang off the chandelier or whatever it takes. He's not disciplining them. That's the parents' job. No, he's going to sit there and let these kids run around. And hopefully he has some coaches that'll keep some guys in check. That's the key right there for a veteran coach. Having the right guys as your assistant. They're the guys that would sit there to mind the shop on the every day-to-day. He's for the Sundays and the game plan. Do I think he's an upgrade? Yes. And I think, and once again, it's always been said about Pete Carroll, his energy levels and everything else. It's outstanding. He has more energy than some guys in their 30s. So I think he's going to be a good change of environment. I should say change of blood for that franchise.
And the last one we'll look at here, it's Insider Football 1029 Game Coast Sports Network. Last coach going in. Liam Cohen, Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, is he finally going to fix Lawrence? I mean, because they've been waiting a long time.
Yeah, that's the thing with Jacksonville right now. You're in a situation because you paid Trevor Lawrence's money. He's there, so you have to do something with him. The fact is, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like he's going to be a stud wide receiver. They did well there. The running back situation gets a little murky at this point because NTN, he's had injury problems. Tank Bigsby, though, he played well for him last year, and they drafted that kid Tootin as well. So they have some running backs. They don't know who it's going to be, but they have some running backs. But Trevor Lawrence, it's like it's either now or never with that guy.
Yeah, and I think a big thing is they got to decide what they're going to do with Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, they draft him number 2. They're talking about playing receiver. I don't know if that's the best idea. Having him take more snaps there. I think he's still NFL ready corner, and they could put him out there, and he's got to learn the route tree, and so it's going to be interesting. I think Liam Cohen will bring some fresh new ideas there. But, there's just a lot they need to fix in a short period of time to catch the Houston Texans, who won that division the last 2 years. And I think Cohen will do a nice job, but not a situation where Shad Khan, he wasn't very patient with Doug Peterson. And he pulled the plug, and how much time is he going to give Cohen? So there are your new coaching situations here around the National Football League here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football. As we said, training camps are underway. Hall of Fame game will be July 31st, Canton, Ohio. The Chargers against the Detroit Lions. Before we get to our AFC North preview, want to go over our hold-ins list with Kevin here on Lloyd Vance Inside Football. Trey Harris did report for the Chargers. They need him to come in. They're finally, a lot of these second rounders are coming in. A big thing was Jalen Higgins got a guaranteed contract, a second round pick for the Houston Texans, and that kind of put a wrench in everything. And a lot of the other guys wanted to come in and get the same kind of deals. And we kind of have a discussion on it. Commanders receiver Terry McLaurin, does he hold out? Do they give him some money? I mean, he just saw Garrett Wilson get paid. But, it seems like both sides are kind of dug in.
I don't think McLaurin's coming in anytime soon, that's for sure. And that's a shame because, once again, he's had some timing. Like him and Jaden Daniels seem to work well together. And you're going to sit there and you're the growth of that combo working better together. So by the time he gets there, where are they going to be at timing-wise? And it could set back the Commanders for the first month of the season.
Yeah, they need him because we talk about Deebo Samuel and how he looks like a backup fullback, and what else do they have at the receiver position? And they have the Luke McCaffrey, but they don't have much else, So they need Terry McLaurin there. Maybe slide some of that money forward. I know they're paying a lot of the offensive line and a lot like Laramie Tunsil. They're trying to change that situation there. But while they have Gene Daniels on that rookie contract, they should do as much as they possibly can. So that's going to be something to monitor. This one was interesting, Kevin. Niners receiver Jawan Jennings. I mean, you're Jawan Jennings. What are you talking about holding out and everything? Yeah, you played well in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but they paid Brandon Ayuk, who they think is going to come back from that knee injury there, and they made the mistake of paying Debo earlier. And they have Pearsall, who's a little banged up, but they kind of plan for the future with him. So, Jawan Jennings, what do you think is going to happen there?
I think he's getting bad advice is what I'm thinking. It's like this franchise has shown you that they're not going to do that. You finally got to a point in your career where, he's put up some okay games here and there. He's never done it for a stretch, for a season, that's for sure. So you're at a point in your career, you're going to be a starter. You're going to get the big look. Yeah, I want to hold out now. No, man, don't hold out now. This is when you go in, put your head down, play a full season, put up some numbers, then get your money. I don't know, just bad advice.
Yeah, and I don't even know if he's put up a 1,000-yard season, which is not even that big deal now with 17-game season. He's been a nice fill-in player, but in terms of asking for, I'm holding out. And I love how players talk tough now, but once starts and they're under contract, it's $50,000 fine per day. So that could change their mind real quick about reporting. So we'll see about Jawan Jennings. This one I think is kind of justified. And it's the same team, dual situation. Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson. We'll talk about him first. 17.5 sacks to lead in the National Football League. He sees Watt get that contract. Myles Garrett's $40 million a year in his own division. Even Max Crosby got the bag. He's making $35.5 million. And Mike Brown, the the owner of the Bengals, he is dug in and he don't want to pay Trey Hendrickson. How's it going to work out?
It's kind of a shame, to be honest. The Cincinnati needs him. There's no doubt about it. Their success depends on him defensively. But Cincinnati's cheap. At the end of the day, Cincinnati's cheap.
Yeah, they sure are, man. And you talk about mismanagement. Mike Brown just over and over again. It reminds me of Norman Brayman. I don't know if you remember. I remember the old Eagles players. They were talking about they had to pay for their own jock straps and their own socks and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, come on, man. These guys are professionals. And the NFL revenues were $13 billion, so all the teams split that. I mean, you're getting good money, they're getting good revenue there, their stadium was refurbished and everything. Just pay them, man. The thing is also, Mike Brown, he's invested a lot on the offensive side of the football. They gave T. Higgins a nice contract. They franchised him, but he has a nice deal. Jamar Chase, one of the highest paid receivers out there, and Joe Burrow as well is top 10 in terms of pay. But they got to find a way to pay Hendrickson. And I think Hendrickson's situation kind of leaked into rookie defensive end Shamar Stewart. The Texas A&M told him, nah, you can't come back to school. All right, so they're going to figure this thing out. It has to do with guarantees and offset language. And the Bengals want him to do something no other high rookie draft pick has done, take a contract that doesn't, that's not advantageous to him. I know his agent is telling him no. And Mike Brown came out today, was like, well, he's being ridiculous. So who's going to blink first?
Well, the thing is, he's got the whole union telling him and his agent, you can't take this contract. You can't do it. It's going to set a precedent for other owners to do it, other organizations. So the kid's in a tough spot. It's like you want to sit there, you want to play, you want to make money. But the thing is, he's got to sit out with it. He take it. I mean, look, he just won't, and that's a shame.
And now the thing is, he will not be fined because he's not under contract. But, it's tough because a lot of times these rookies take advances on their potential earnings. They go to camps with a draft and all kinds of things to get ready. And usually, they pay everything back. But, if he doesn't sign, it's going to be a problem. So Shamar Stewart, that situation, we'll have to monitor that. Last one we'll talk about in terms of holdouts. Dallas Cowboys. We were just talking about Jerry Jones. And what are you doing, Jerry? What is your plan? He's acting like an 80-something-year-old guy. And Steve and his son really needs to talk to me. Micah Parsons, one of the best pass rushers out there, difference maker. He's reporting to his credit, but he has not given him an extension, and everyone knows he deserves it. It's going to be, when it's all said and done, he's going to owe him a lot of money.
That's the thing with Dallas. It's just, what are you doing? It's like, it makes no sense. This guy is still young enough, he's going to play for your franchise for a very long time if you sign him and lock him up. So out of all the guys that you sign and you bring in, that's the guy you're going to draw the line with? And it makes no sense to me, which is why I love Jerry Jones.
Yeah, and a lot of Eagles fans and followers do too, because he just has no plan, and he didn't really need to pay Dak $63 million per season, and then let Micah Parsons hang out there. So they got a lot to figure out there, but I think eventually it'll get done. And then they'll have CD making a ton of money, Dak making a ton of money, and Parsons making a ton of money. And they typically have not done well in the draft. So yeah, could be a long time for Dallas. Last thing before we get to our AFC North preview here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, Kansas City Chiefs receiver Rashee Rice, and this is right before our favorite time of year, which is fantasy football draft. He gets 5 years probation. He has served 30 days in jail. He'll probably do that in the offseason. But the big thing, Kevin, is he will have a suspension, probably 4 to 6 games, I'm thinking. And when you look at Kansas City's early, late, they need him at the Chargers, Philadelphia, at the Giants. They should be all right there. Baltimore, at Jacksonville, Detroit, Las Vegas. So they're their first couple games. What do you think is going to happen here? He played very well in 4 games before a knee injury. He had 24 catches, 288, 2 TDs.
Well, one thing and foremost, I never touch Andy Reid Kansas City Chief players in fantasy football. I don't like what he does because he just has a gut feeling some games and he goes to guys and then you won't see the guy you think he's going to the whole time. So Andy's not getting me this year. They definitely need him back. There's no doubt. He is a talent on the field. The suspension from the league is going to be interesting. Do they decide to come hard at him right there? Do they hit him for the 6? Do they even go as far as 8? I think if he gets 4, they should call it a win right there. But with the competition they have early in the season, they need to get him on the field as quick as they can.
Yeah, and then they have some other pieces there. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think there's not much left, but he's there. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, who played pretty well in stints last year. And it's funny, I fell for exactly what you were saying. Last year I took Worthy, and there were some games, man, he was on fire, and then I bench him, and they're using him on reverses and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, it's tough to always figure out how he's going to play his guys. So I think Mahomes, is ready to roll. It will affect him, though, if they don't have Rice, up to 6 games. So that's something we're going to monitor. And we're here in Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Network. I'm here with Kevin Midgette. Angel is behind the glass. All right, AFC North. And last season, they only had 2 teams make it, but in the past, they've had 3 teams make the playoffs out of this division. And trying to – all right, I'll start with – and Nate always says I'm a closet Steelers fan, because – I always say Mike Tomlin never had a losing season, but they've had an impressive run with the Steelers, at the history of the organization, but they have not won a playoff game since the 2016 season. So it was January 15th, 2017. The Steelers last year were 10-7, lost in a wild card round to Baltimore. They weren't even really in the game. Omar Khan, they give extension to the general manager. Some people say Tomlin's on a hot seat. I don't think so, but they're running it back with his same group, Arthur Smith, who I think struggled at times at offense coordinator, and Terry Austin is back, and Danny Smith, the special teams guy. So what are you thinking about the Steelers? And then I'll run down some of the roster pieces.
I think the Steelers, we talked about it before at the end of last season. Mike Tomlin might have done his best job coaching last year. To get that team into the playoffs and playing like they were, and I was impressed. I know that to do with the talent and skill ability that he had there. I think Mike Tomlin almost gets a pass for this year. I really think he's going to come in somewhere once again between 7 and 10 wins, and he just gets a pass with that Aaron Rodgers thing. I mean, you can't give a guy somebody who's a quarter in his 40s and say, "Hey, go out there, win a Super Bowl for us." It's like. Like I said, the body of work that he's put out there, I think he gets a pass this year.
Yeah, there's only one Tom Brady that's been able to get it done at this advanced stage. I mean, you're just never going to see that probably again in the National Football League. Aaron Rodgers, 41, going to be 42 by the end of the season. The over-under win total for the Steelers is at 8.5, so Vegas is thinking right around the area you're thinking. I actually think – they're going to come in under it. I think they get 8 wins. He finally has a losing season, but as you said, he's going to get a pass because when you look at the roster, there are some holes here and there. They do have DK Metcalf, but then the other receiver, who's it going to be? I mean, Robert Woods, Calvin Austin. I mean, Roman Smith, Wilson. I mean, not good names there. Offensive line is always Broderick Jones. They brought in the draft. Has not done that well. Isaac Salomalo coming to the Eagles. He's solid. Zach Frazier learning at the center position. And then they have a double tight end set now with Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. Rodgers. It has to be Rodgers. It's not going to be Mason Rudolph swinging the helmet. It's not going to be him. And then they're building around the running backs. Jalen Warren he's a sneaky good guy. Pounded between the tackles, and now they're bringing in Caleb Johnson coming from Iowa, and then Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles is there as well. So that's where they're looking offensively. Defense, as I was saying earlier, they put a ton of assets into the defense. Cam Hayward is probably about 37, another old guy. TJ Watt gets the big contract. Patrick Queen's played pretty well for them. Hopkins a good pass rusher. And then Darius Slay, who we're talking about, comes over to the Eagles. Jeff Ramsey comes from Miami. Deshaun Elliott is at the one safety. He's pretty solid. But then who's going to replace Minka Fitzpatrick? And then they have Joey Porter Jr. So what do you think in terms of – I'm thinking they'll finish above the Cleveland Browns at least.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a 3-team race. Let's be honest. It's Cleveland's out of the mix. It's between the other three. They would have told me this is the roster they had, and it was 2021, 22. I'm like, all right, man, they got something going on here. The fact is, it's 2025 going into 26, and like we said before, it's just like they have a lot of good names on paper, but the actual out there, the wear and tear of a 17-game season on these older bodies, I think it's going to take its toll.
Yeah, the big thing, Kevin, is they finished last year 1-4 in their last 5 games. So kind of wilted into the season, and then they make these trades and sign Rodgers, and you're like, oh, kind of a head scratcher. So I thought they should have found a way to keep Pickens too. Trading him to Dallas, I wasn't, I know he may have been a malcontent, but they needed him. So some questions for the Steelers, and they faced 7 teams that made the playoffs. Well, we'll jump to the Cleveland Browns, who I talked about, and they're just a rudderless ship. I don't know what they're doing. Deshaun Watson guaranteed contract, $46 million this season, $46 next season. Obviously, has the Achilles, may not play, but they were 3-14. Owner Jimmy Haslam, what are you doing? And then Andrew Barry's back as a general manager. They get new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, the old Notre Dame quarterback. He's going to be their OC. But I think Stefanski is on a hot seat, and the over-under win total is 5.5 for these guys.
That's an under. I'm going the under on that one. I mean, what was the last time you heard the phrase job security with a Cleveland Browns, head coach? And not since what, Schottenheimer? It's like all of these guys are always on the hot seat. That's part of the Cleveland gig right there. If you look at their skill positions, you have Judy, you have Njoku at tight end. You have the running back situation now with Nick Chubb with the Texans. So you have Ford there, and the kid they drafted from Ohio State has his own problems going on.
Yeah, he's going to get suspended.
Yeah, he's got his own problems going on right now. So I don't know if it's the Cleveland curse or what it is, but I will say this. I will never see the Cleveland Browns win a Super Bowl in my lifetime. I feel bad for the city of Cleveland that they never will. Since Otto Graham, they haven't won anything? So I think it's just going to keep going.
Yeah. And they're one of, I think, 5 teams never even made the Super Bowl. And you're like, yeah, they probably never will. And when you look at the skill positions, Kevin, it's just like, and you got Judy, who's a solid guy coming over from Denver. He started finally picking it up a little bit. Deontay Johnson bounced all around, former Steeler. They're trying to get something out of him. Cedric Tillman's there. The offensive line has been kind of patchwork lately. They were one of the best probably about 3 years ago or so. But Juwan Jones, he's kind of struggled at left tackle. You have Joel Batanyo, who's a good player, but he's getting a little long in the tooth. And then Wyatt Teller's getting long in the tooth as well. I do like Njoku. He had when he's not out of the lineup, he makes some big plays in terms of fantasy. So he's still there. And then we talked about the quarterback position. Nobody knows what's going to go on there. Okay, they go with Kenny Pickett. The guy threw 13 touchdowns in 2 seasons as a starter for the season. So I don't know what they're doing. So I definitely think that 5.5, go with the under. Poor Myles Garrett. He's one of the best in the league, defensive player of the year. And I just don't think he's going to ever win a lot with this franchise. So we kind of agree with the Browns that they're going to be they face 8 teams that made the playoffs too. So I think they're going to get beat up. But hey, week 5, you're going to have some fun. They're in London playing the Minnesota Vikings. So that's the early game, Sunday, October 5th, week 5.
I did see
All
the
right.
one thing, was it in the scheduling
Yep.
court, how the Browns, how tough of a schedule they have. What is up with that? Their team's
Yeah,
flat out.
it's like the Browns and the Giants. They gave really hard schedules too.
Yeah.
Oh well, sucks for them. So we
Yeah.
talked the Cincinnati Bengals 9-8 last year. They started 0-3, so they started 0-3 in 2019, 2024, and both years they made a fast and furious comeback, but it wasn't enough. 5-0 their last 5 games. High scoring team last year, averaging 28 points per game, but they also allowed almost 26 points per game. So, when you talk about the Bengals, 9.5 is the over and under for them. Obviously, Chase, Higgins, Burrow, even Mike Gesicki, Chase Brown got a lot of weapons offensively.
Cincinnati is one of those teams, and it's kind of weird. I've kind of it. If you pay attention when you're talking to other guys about like the Cincinnati Bengals, or even like just fantasy or the league in general, you're gonna have somebody go, "Yeah, Joe Burrow and the Bengals." Like everyone has a man crush on Joe Burrow now. It's like you always hear some guy will bring up Joe Burrow. I'm like, yeah, he's got that little aura about him where people just kind of gravitate to, I think. But their offense, yeah, they can hang some points. Their big question is a running back now. Is Chase Brown that guy who can carry being a number one? Because they're not that deep after him. So I always liked him as, a backup, little change of pace back. But now that he's going to carry the load, that could be, their problem right there.
Yeah, and Zach Taylor, their head coach, I would say he's on a hot seat, but we've seen it before with Brown, where he brought back Marvin Lewis year after year.
Oh, God, yeah.
He seems to like Zach Taylor, and he should have some job security there. They're bringing in Al Golden coming over from Notre Dame as a defensive coordinator. He used to be the Temple coach that we all remember. But this defense, devoid of a lot of talent, they got to sign Hendrickson. We talked about also their first-round draft pick, Shamar Stewart. They got to get that cleaned up. So I do think, though, that they can get the 7th spot, be a wild card team because they put up a lot of points. And take Jamar Chase in fantasy, folks. So that is the Bengals. The Bengals also have a tough schedule. They face 9 playoff teams, so they're going to be a lot of big games. The big one's Thanksgiving. They're at the Ravens. That's the late game on Thanksgiving, week 13. And we'll close our AFC North preview here on Lloyd Vance Inside Football 102.9, the Game, Coast Sports Network. The Baltimore Ravens in your backyard, Kevin. Harbaugh, though, has been there a long time. I was saying he's been there since 2008. Lamar Jackson 3-5 in the playoffs. Playoffs are bust for them. Do they have enough talent as well offensively? DeAndre Hopkins comes over. They have Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Ronnie Stanley. I think he's a little banged up, but they have Lamar Jackson, one of the most dominant dual threats in the National Football League, and Derrick Henry, obviously, still improving at 31. So what about the Ravens?
The Ravens have become that team where the regular season doesn't even matter. They're going to make the playoffs, and that. What they do in the playoffs is how their whole season is determined. Some teams get to a playoffs, and it's like, oh, that's a great season for them. Ravens get to a playoff and don't get to a Super Bowl because it's been a little while now. That's a bad season. So it was like the Eagles teams, but the Eagles teams, on the other hand, they got to the conference championships at least. Baltimore's even struggling to do that once they get in the playoffs. So the whole season for the Baltimore Ravens hangs on make the playoffs, and what are you going to do then? Because it's also, we're starting to talk about Lamar's legacy as well. What damage is done in the playoffs? How far has he gotten in the playoffs? So it's a big year for him.
Yeah, and then you got Steve Bisciotti, the owner there, Eric DaCosta, the general manager. They did a great job in terms of trying. The offense, scored 31 points a game. They allowed 21 on defense, so they put a lot into the defense trying to fix that. They had Matabike at defensive tackle. Van Noy had a rebirth with a lot of sacks last year. Roquan Smith, obviously, a lot of tackles. Their secondary, though, I think is going to be one of the best. They have Nate Wiggins, Kyle Hamilton, who's just a Swiss Army knife, and then Malachi Starks coming over in the draft. So I think the Ravens will get to that 11.5 win total. And then it's all about the playoffs, as Kevin was saying. So another great week here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coast Sports Network. Thanks for being with us. Great job, Kevin. Angel, great job behind the glass. And see you next week.